As I think about working with my class on reading and tying my instruction to the standards, I will begin by looking at the College and Career Readiness Anchor Standards for reading. Then, since my students are working at the low, intermediate ESL level, I will look at the aligned CASAS reading standards for that level. Looks like I will take a look at R3.4. As I look at standard R3.4, it says, read and understand moderately complex texts, for example, general informational materials, common workplace materials. I see that it is aligned with CCR Anchor Standards Reading 1 and 2. Oh, I see that Anchor 1 also addresses speaking. Great! My students will be able to demonstrate mastery of the standard after reading as a side evidence in writing or speaking. So, now I have my Anchor standards and my CASA standard identified. I will begin with writing the anchor at the top of my chart and the standard in the first column on my chart. Okay. Let's see what's next. The next column asks me to identify the skills my students will need to meet the standard. What is it I want my students to be able to do? The skills are represented by the verbs used in the standard, so I will look for some verbs. I see 2, read and understand. So, I will place read and understand in the skills column on the chart. Alright, that was easy enough. Now I can move on to the next column. The column with the heading Concepts, Content is asking what the learner should know, and indicates I should be looking for nouns. My first verb was read, so just what is it that students will read? Aha! They will read a complex text, so the first entry in the Concepts, Content column will be complex text. The second verb is understand. What do they understand? Oh sure, they understand a complex text as well. So, they will be practicing 2 skills with 1 concept. Okay, now moving on. What's next? Context. The context asks me to consider when the learner will demonstrate the skills and concepts. This CASA's reading standard is pointing to complex text. I know it is good to keep the standard in mind as I unpack it, and to also refer to the Anchor standard as I am in this process. I can use words from the standard as I unpack it. So, for the context column I am going to write texts. Now I am ready to decide what cognitive level the students will be working on. I am looking at the verbs I have chosen for the skills column and considering the cognitive levels of each. I think understand is a lower order thinking objective, but I think read would indicate a higher order process than understanding something. Depending on the task. The anchor for the standard requires the student to demonstrate their command of conversations. In order to generate conversation from reading a text, students have to understand and analyze what they read. In some cases they will generate original conversation, in addition to any prompts that may be provided for them to read from. Therefore, read could fit in 2 of the Bloom's levels, but really fits more with the analyzed level. Because more than likely the student will generate conversation from the new information in the text, but it may not be original. So, I will write analyze in my Bloom's level column since I am supposed to write the highest level of thinking students will use. I am almost done. I need to confirm the unpacking of my standard before I create an activity so I can be sure the activity supports my students' learning. I am going to cover up the text of the standard to see if what I have included under skills, content and context represent and describe the standard. I think the words I have chosen do that, so now I will check to see if I have used words that actually appear in the standard for the skills, content and context columns. Let's see. Students will read and understand moderately complex texts and common workplace materials. I did a really good job using words from the standard, except I did have to go back to the Anchor standard to help me determine which level of Bloom's I need to use. I feel as if the skills and content listed for the standard are ones that instructors would expect students to meet. If their class assignment was to demonstrate a command of the conversations of standard English. I am happy with what I have done. So now I have to create an activity that I can use in class to help students see the relevance of the standard to their lives, and to see how they would use these skills. Let's see, I can have each student participate in a conversation gap on reviewing paychecks. Okay, Now I'm all finished and have the start of a good lesson for my class on reading and understanding complex texts and workplace materials.